90 years old. And for most of my life, I thought being needed was the same thing as being loved. It took me a long time to see the difference, longer than I care to admit. Because when you're praised for being useful, reliable, and accommodating, it feels like love. It looks like love from the outside, but it isn't. That's the truth I didn't understand until very late. Most mornings start the same now. I wake up before the sun, not because I have somewhere to go, but because my body still believes there's work waiting for me. I sit at the small kitchen table and listen to the house. It's quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. That's when the memories come back. Not the dramatic ones, the ordinary ones that never felt important at the time. And they all point to the same realization. I spent my life trying to be the person everyone else needed me to be. And somehow, I forgot to ask who I was allowed to be when no one needed anything. When I was younger, I believed approval was earned. You earned it by being agreeable, by not causing problems, by stepping in before anyone had to ask. I was good at that. People relied on me. They trusted me. They praised me for being dependable. And I mistook that praise for closeness. This is where it started going wrong, even though it didn't feel wrong at the time. I grew up in a family where being easy was rewarded, where emotions were tolerated only if they didn't inconvenience anyone else. So I learned to read the room, to adjust, to smooth things over before tension had a chance to settle. I told myself I was being kind, and for a while it worked. I became the one people called when they needed help, the one who stayed late, the one who said yes without hesitation. But here's the part I didn't see then. Every time I made myself smaller to keep the peace, someone else learned that I didn't need much space at all. That lesson sticks. I didn't notice it happening. No one ever sat me down and said, "You're disappearing." It happened quietly. Conversations started revolving around what I could do, not how I felt. Decisions were made with the assumption that I would adapt. And I did, because adapting had become my identity. I told myself this was maturity, that wanting less was a virtue. What I didn't understand is that people don't bond with you over how little you ask for. They bond with you over what you're willing to share. And I shared very little. This is something most people never realize until it's already cost them something. When you're always agreeable, people stop checking in. Not out of cruelty, out of habit. I remember moments when I felt overlooked and immediately corrected myself, told myself I was being selfish, that others had bigger problems. So I swallowed it, and each time I did, it became easier for others to forget I had needs at all. I wasn't mistreated, that's important to say. I was appreciated. But appreciation is not intimacy. That distinction didn't make sense to me until much later. By the time I reached my 60s, my role was already set. I was the helper, the supporter, the steady presence in the background. People came to me when things fell apart, but rarely when things felt uncertain or tender. I thought that meant I was strong. What it actually meant was that I had become emotionally invisible. And invisibility doesn't announce itself. It just settles in. There were moments I should have paid attention to. When people thanked me quickly and moved on. When conversations ended as soon as the problem was solved. When no one asked what I wanted in return. I noticed these things. I just didn't question them. Because questioning them would have meant admitting something uncomfortable. That being useful had replaced being known. That realization didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, after I retired, after the calls became less frequent, after I was no longer needed in the same ways. That's when the silence changed. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the absence of curiosity. No one was unkind. They simply assumed I was fine. After all, I always had been. That assumption is powerful, and once it settles, it's hard to undo. I started replaying moments from years earlier. Not arguments, not conflicts, the small decisions. The times I chose approval over honesty. The times I laughed something off instead of saying it hurt. The times I thought being easy would make me indispensable. It didn't. It made me replaceable. This is the part that's difficult to accept at my age. People don't stay close because you make their lives easier. They stay close because they feel invited into yours. I never learned how to do that. And by the time I understood it, most of the patterns were already set. There are some lessons that arrive only when you no longer have much time to practice them. This was one of mine. In your 90s, time feels different, not urgent, finite. You don't rush anymore, but you also don't postpone. There's a strange honesty that shows up when there's very little left to protect. That's when I finally admitted something I had avoided my entire life. I didn't spend my years pleasing people because they forced me to. I did it because it felt safer than risking disappointment. That's an uncomfortable truth. I liked being needed. I liked being the reliable one. Because as long as people needed me, I didn't have to wonder whether they actually wanted me. Need is clear. Want is uncertain. And uncertainty terrified me. So I built a life where my value was obvious, measured in favors, in availability, in silence. I thought that was how you stayed connected. What I didn't see was that connection built on usefulness collapses the moment usefulness fades. That moment came quietly. It wasn't dramatic, no confrontation, no falling out, just fewer invitations, shorter conversations, longer gaps between calls. At first, I told myself this was normal. People get busy, lives expand. But deep down, I knew something else was happening. I had trained everyone around me to expect me to adapt, and when I could no longer do that as easily, there was nothing else holding us together. This is the cost no one warns you about. When you spend decades shaping yourself around others, you don't leave much of yourself behind. So when people finally look for you, there isn't much to find. I don't say this with resentment. I say it with clarity. Most people in my life didn't drift away because they didn't care. They drifted because they never learned who I was beneath the role I played. And that part is on me. I rarely shared doubt, rarely expressed anger, rarely said no. I believed that restraint was kindness. But restraint, when practiced for too long, becomes erasure. There were moments when I felt lonely, even in company. I ignored those moments. I told myself loneliness was selfish, that gratitude meant accepting what you were given. I was wrong. Loneliness is information, and I dismissed it every time it tried to speak. By the time I listened, it had already shaped my life. I look back now and see how often people interacted with the version of me that caused the least friction. The agreeable version, the accommodating version, the quiet one. They weren't wrong for preferring that version. I gave it to them. What I didn't give was access to anything deeper, so there was nothing deeper to miss when distance grew. That realization stings in a way I can't fully explain, Because regret at this age isn't loud. It doesn't demand action. It just sits beside you while you drink your coffee, while you watch the light change on the wall, while you realize that most of your life has already introduced itself. There are things I can't undo, relationships that settled into polite distance long ago, not out of anger, out of habit. Habits are powerful. They outlive intentions. If I had understood earlier that pleasing people is not the same as connecting with them, I would have made different choices. I would have tolerated discomfort, let conversations be awkward, allowed myself to be inconvenient. Because inconvenience is often the price of honesty. I thought being liked was the goal. I didn't realize being known was the point. At 90, I don't have many ambitions left, but I have this understanding. People don't stay close to the version of you that asks for nothing. They stay close to the version that lets them see something real, even if it's messy, even if it complicates things, especially then. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in what I'm saying, I won't tell you what to do. I learned a long time ago that advice rarely changes anyone. But I will leave you with this. Pay attention to the moments when you swallow something to keep things smooth. Those moments add up. Pay attention to who knows what you actually want and who only knows what you provide. Pay attention to whether the people around you would still recognize you if you stopped being useful. I spent my life pleasing the wrong people, not because they were bad, but because I never gave the right ones a chance to really see me. That's a quiet regret, but it's a heavy one. And if there's anything left for me now, it's this truth. Being easy to live with is not the same as being loved. And love that doesn't require your presence isn't love that stays.